Hello, everyone, and this is an open conversation with Henry. Henry Patten is top 50 ATP Doubles player. He's a former college tennis player who was ranked number one in the nation in Division One doubles, and I'm excited to be having this conversation because Henry was also um, part of the same team that I was in the same UNC Asheville team. And I'm excited to be having this chat. We're going to be talking about the journey towards reaching the top level in doubles, as well as the mental challenges and lessons learned along the way. Um, so, yeah, let's say thanks for joining, Henry, and we're going to keep it nice and light, this conversation. So, it's exciting to have you here. Let's start with the college experience. And one of the questions that I was thinking about college tennis is, you know, how do you describe your overall development? As a tennis player, both and off the court, as far as college tennis.
Yeah. Well, firstly, Resty, thanks for inviting me on. It's always a pleasure. College tennis, I think it depends. It depends on the individual for sure. I mean, for me, it was. I mean, you saw me. You were there for my freshman year. The development for me was massive in all respects, physical, mental, and kind of just as a person maturing. Um, Yeah, on the tennis side, I'd say mainly it was kind of a mindset and a physicality that when I first went over to the States, perhaps I wasn't quite ready for. I mean, I was an okay junior, kind of. I think I was nationally ranked in the UK, like around just over 30 in the UK, which isn't really amazing. I hadn't really put that much time into my physical work, for sure. Um, and obviously I'd never kind of lived on my own or been a part of a team before. So yeah, it was everything for me developed, and every single day you work on these things and have to adapt. And yeah, I just had to adapt. Basically, that's how I felt. And I still remember sitting in that Mexican restaurant in Asheville
Mhm.
where I went to school, and you guys just drilling me because I was I was lazy and I wasn't. You guys thought I was good at tennis, but you were like, you got to work hard. So yeah, it was a big mindset change. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the individual and what experiences you have going in before that. Obviously, some of the juniors going to college now are like top ITF, so they're pretty, physically and tennis wise developed, I would say. Um, but yeah, everything for me.
Yeah, yeah, it brings back memories, of course, listening to you, and it's nice. And I hear the discipline that you build up through college, then the mindset you had to take lots of responsibilities,
Yeah,
and how you shaped, with this adaptiveness, adaptability is so important, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So the along with that is the other thing now. So college tennis, from it's a team sport. Uh, but having played individually, right, through your career in juniors, what does it give you really? This team mentality and this collectiveness. Even now, how did you grow? And even now, being a doubles tennis player.
I mean, for me, again, I think it definitely depends what university program you go into. It will depend on the individual, but again, I was lucky, my freshman year and the years after you as well. We had a really close knit team, um, and so that it makes it a lot easier, really, because I felt like I was surrounded by my best friends, and you're spending, probably what 3-4 hours a day at least with the same group of guys and the coach as well, obviously. Um, so kind of from a relationship perspective, it was brilliant, and yeah, I loved it. But I feel quite fortunate about that I was surrounded by an experienced and nice team. I've spoken to others about their experiences, and I know it's not quite the same. And then from a tennis perspective, I think you don't really have a choice. Your priorities kind of change. You actually, because it's so drilled into you, and you're with these guys every day. And Tom, our coach, was so keen on the team and making us appreciate the team side of it, and momentum shifts and all of the rest of it. You're not really playing for yourself in an ideal world, which obviously is completely different to how it is in juniors. For me, that gave me something more to play for almost. To me, I was more concerned with how the team was doing than how I was necessarily doing. And actually, I think that took some pressure off of me. It became more about, my energy and my performance rather than whether I won or lost. And I think that's a product of good coaching. Obviously, we were at a Division 1 school, but kind of a smaller Division 1 school. So it's not like we were ranked, it's not like we were ranked 4 and playing the number 3 team in the country thinking, we got to win this, we got to win this. So I think that gave me, the team environment gave me space to it took a bit of pressure off me, to be honest. I had you screaming your head off on court 3, and I was thinking, this is great. It's amazing. I was, listening to you. Ella. And yeah, for me, it took some pressure off for sure.
Yeah. And this purpose, right? The collective purpose.
Yes.
Because we're talking now, you're 18 years old, like most of us, we went to college tennis. And up until this point, there's a lot of competitiveness. There's a lot of result-based mentality in this high-performance world. And I hear you say now, okay, forget about this, how the school is going to do, because it was not the top level schools that we were ranked. So it was the purpose and for the collective, which I hear you say that allowed you to focus on the present and took the pressure off. Basically,
Yeah.
you're just enjoying the moment,
Yeah,
right?
100%. I mean, and if I was losing, I could still help the team in other ways. I could try and lose slower, or I could try to be really vocal and help in that way and help other people. So that, yeah, I think while the pressure on the team result was still fairly high, and I remember having some fairly serious chats about how we can win as a team. Actually, the individual side of it, wasn't as important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, and that carried on. I assume now this mentality also in your doubles. So would you say how this transition from college, what were the advantages? One of advantage was that this team collectiveness. What other advantages did you notice for your transition towards the professional that you took away from this college experience and helped you psychologically also?
Yeah. Well, I think, for me, I towards the end of my college career, I spent some time traveling on my own in the fall to the individual tournaments. So, I remember I went to California for a couple of tournaments and, nationals and all that stuff. So, I mean, obviously that transitions quite naturally into, traveling around and playing on the tour, even if it's slightly different. And then, so I mean, you learn a lot in college about just how to fight and how to fight for matches. I mean, it's pretty brutal out there. Everyone's desperate to win, and so yeah, you kind of just get. I wouldn't say that I necessarily learned it on my own accord. You kind of have no choice but to adapt this discipline and this kind of desire to win. And then that's also coupled with your friendships and your relationships. Yeah, it's an odd one because the professional tennis psychologically is very lonely, and you're not really surrounded by your friends, and you're not going to classes or going out to bars or, whatever it is, it's just tennis. And you're pretty much on your own. And I suppose I've always, tennis is not the most important thing in my life, and it absolutely never will be for me. My relationships and my family, my friends. I mean, it sounds all so cliche, but I think some people are definitely some people out there, and it's their entire lives. They're seriously dedicating their lives to it. So again, I don't know. It seems like I naturally kind of try and find ways to take the pressure off. Like my dad always used to say, it's only a game. I mean, it's a game of tennis. And if you're enjoying yourself, which I do, and I love playing tennis, and I love competing. I'm a really competitive person when I get on the tennis court. But yeah, I just say, college just drills in this mindset of discipline and the process and all of these things that we always hear. And in college, you're every single day you're just getting it drilled into you. But it wasn't something that I necessarily learned and just kind of took it over. It just became completely natural for me.
Yeah. So, you know, I hear you. The growth. All of these skills that you're building. You becoming more autonomous. Throughout the way you mature a lot,
Yeah.
and but also this piece of collectiveness and having your back on the team, which makes it less lonely. And on the other side, we have the professional tour, which is more rough. You're lonely. You have to go through situations by yourself, and some tough situations. And in some cases, some authors they're not ready. But on the other side, you say uh, the more you play and the more matches you have, the more rough experiences on the tour, you're going to build up your resilience. So here comes the question, which it's very much discussed. Do you think it's important for someone to go through the college tennis road and then follow the professional? Or what do you think? Sometimes it's individual based, and we cannot say this is the best way, but what is your opinion?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it completely depends on where you're at as a tennis player when you're, 16, 17. For me, if you're not winning futures by the time you're 16 or 17, then you should go to college, because there's plenty of guys in the college system that, will be winning futures and going far in challenges. I think, yeah, I mean, I think too many people, if I think about if I'd have gone on tour when I was 17, I mean, it would have been an absolute joke. I mean, I would have stopped after 2 years, max to 100% would have stopped. And on top of that, you're 16, 17, 18, and you're probably on your own. You might be with your parents, but you're probably on your own. You're traveling to a different place this week. So you kind of just miss everything. I think college college tennis is the best pathway for the vast majority of people. But yeah, seriously, I think if you're not, winning futures, going to, semis, finals of futures most weeks as a junior when you're 17, then you should probably seriously have a think about college. And yeah, there's this, I know that in the national federations and, the LTA now are much more pro college tennis, because I think they've just realised it's produced lots of good players, and B, you can't really. There's no way of knowing if you're going to make it when you're 17, even if you are winning futures, even if you're an unbelievable junior. There's no way of knowing. And college gives you a chance to figure that out. Gives you, an education, which I think is good to have and broadens your horizons and all the rest of it. Gives you really high quality tennis and facilities. But I don't think you're going to miss out tennis wise if you go and train and play at university for 2, 3, 4 years, however long you want to do it. and also it gives you that independency, and yeah, you have to live on your own. You have to learn some life skills, which for me again were invaluable. Yeah, so that's where I stand on it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm I'm actually also a little bit, not say biased, but I like the college road and this kind of perspective. Um, in a way, as you said, many players can gain so much out of it. Of course, you have the pure talent, the really top of the game in the juniors, but then again, you have a lot of athletes that they can gain from that and be ready. And mentally ready, psychologically ready, with all the maturation um, there for them, and you see it. Maybe some of them they even go for college for 2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
and maybe they start the professional route already. But yeah, so there, there, there we have this aspect now, which comes in, which is the identity and the character and the identity of the individual. Talking about the psychological perspective here. Um, so there is a psychological, let's say, change in the identity of the person and the athlete. That's starting, throughout the years, but also when they reach 17, 18, and then all of this procedure of transitioning is happening, and then what happens after college is my question now, because now there's a new transition that you had to go through, and there's questions, concerns that are coming up, and the identity also is shaping now. You're 22 years old. How was it for you, this transition, this identity that is shaping now new forms?
You mean on the professional tour? As I was making that transition.
Yeah.
Well, I feel that I got fairly lucky at kind of different stages during my transition, which obviously starts in the Futures Tour, which is the very bottom of the ladder.
Mm.
And I never traveled anywhere alone. I would always go with a friend, always, to one of these tournaments, So at the start,
Mm.
it was a Croatian guy, Josip Kristanovic, who went to Minnesota. He was a college tennis player.
Mm.
I traveled with a bunch of the Brits to various places, just because I had to. Like, I knew that I wouldn't have a good time if I was completely by myself at one of these tournaments. Yeah, it's tough. I think the first thing you have to kind of say to yourself is you have to decide and make a conscious choice that you're going to do it. And if you want to do it, because frankly, if you don't, then it's going to be a massive waste of money and time.
Mm.
And I think for me, I set myself pretty clear, not goals, but more kind of the opposite. Like I remember I was saying, if you're ranked, if I'm 800 in the world, and after 6 months, my ranking is dropping, or it's kind of the same, or obviously if I run out of money or whatever it is, then you have to really think about stopping. Because I see lots of people out there and that was me as a 23-year-old person. I don't mean that for an 18-year-old. I'm not saying you have more time. But yeah, I mean, you're on your own, and everyone is really good at tennis. That's also what I remember. I developed a lot in college, but I also developed on tour. And I think you have to be in a place that allows you to learn and watch and develop and kind of try your best to carry that over from college. Because again, it's way more matches. The players, that are winning the futures are probably better players than you've ever played before. And it's, week in, week out. Whereas college is more, it's 1 or 2 matches every week, and usually the universities you're playing are kind of at your level, and you might have played them before and you sort of know how they play. So yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough to go from college to where the facilities are amazing, and you have all your friends right there with you. Um, to then go onto the road where the facilities aren't great. Um, you're using like old balls for practice, and qualifying. There's no ball change or anything, and in college tennis you get a ball change. So um, yeah, you have to go in, I think, with a mindset that it's not going to be particularly pretty or glamorous, and it's going to be fairly expensive, and pressured on results. Therefore, um, but I think you just have to try and put yourself in a place to learn, and that's something that I kind of pride myself on. Is you know even in the 2 years before college, during college, on kind of the Futures Tour, and now is learning, just learning, being in a position to learn from other people. Um, yeah, which when you're on the Futures Tour is difficult. It is difficult.
Mm. Yeah. As you speak, yeah, I picture, things like, places like far away, that there's, different kinds of foods that you have to digest, because for different people and from Europe, they're going to Asia or other, uh, continents, it's different, and so these kind of things come to mind. Also time delays, time differences. Um, yeah. Um, so the question that comes now is, what kept you going? Because you started on the futures tour, and I remember we were talking about it, starting off with singles to get some ranking to get into doubles. So, what kept you going? What was the psychological trick, let's say,
Yeah.
that, or maybe you did, some psychological skills training, or what did you do? You know?
Yeah, I don't. At that stage, I wasn't really consciously doing any, psychology or anything like that. I think, again, to kind of make a point that I've just made is, the other thing, when you're starting up on the futures tour, unless you're very, very lucky, you don't have any money. You definitely don't have a tennis coach, and you certainly don't have a psychologist. Um, no physical trainer, nothing like that. So you're kind of, on your own, I guess. I mean, the thing for me was the results started to pick up fairly quickly. Um, and then, I guess COVID hit, and I was lucky in the UK that there were some kind of big money tournaments coming on. So I managed to earn a bit of money. So, that helped my part of the brain, that, my, common sense, I guess, saying, you're going to be completely broke if you don't start winning some matches. So I had a bit of money kind of stashed away. So that kind of took a bit of pressure off.
Mm.
And I started to win some matches and get some good results in the 15Ks and 25Ks, um, which was great. And I think you really have to focus on that, because it's not, you're not going to win every week. I don't think anyone does really. So yeah, you have to be pretty good at losing, I would say, and making sure that you lose in the right way, again, to learn. But yeah, for me at the start, it was just, I'd reach out to my friends a lot. When I was back home, I would always try and make sure that I saw my family. It sounds like really basic things, but they're also easy things to neglect, I think. And it's really easy to be out there and just kind of shut everyone off and just get sucked in by the tennis, which to a certain degree you have to do. But you have to just kind of stay conscious, and I think understanding that you've made a choice to be there and to suffer a bit, but you also have to take care of yourself to be able to achieve good results.
Mm. Yeah, and you're saying that, yeah, that the results and this financial, um, some earnings, made you feel better and a little bit more safe, and that maybe was the turning point a little bit to start picking it up and freeing up some parts of your brain to play more freely, um, which is important. And at this level, we see with most of the athletes, they're starting off with their futures. Um, and when was this the decision then to purely focus on doubles? Because we know that when you're out there, and a lot of players, they're really trying to make it to singles, and they really want to play singles, they want to compete, they have started their sport as an individual sport, and it's really hard to make the decision of investing on finding a doubles partner, but also committing just in that.
Yeah.
So how did it work out for you? And how did it go?
Well, I think, well, I'd preface this by saying, in college, my best results were in doubles. I'm a big lefty and I like being in the net. So, it was always in the back of my head, if I if I don't make it in singles or, whatever it is, then I think doubles is a pretty good option for me.
Mm.
And I love playing doubles, even as a junior. Like when I was 12, me and my brother would play, and I honestly, I do love it. Probably, arguably more than singles. I know if you ask Ellie, my girlfriend, she can't watch me play singles because I just look like I'm having a miserable time. Whereas doubles, I actually kind of enjoy it. But yeah, the decision actually fairly recently, so it's probably around this time last year. I think my singles ranking was about 480, 470, around there, I want to say. And yeah, I mean, I was doing pretty well. I've, won 15Ks, I was going deep fairly consistently in the 25Ks. And then, but then obviously I was playing quite a bit of doubles at that point as well. I'd play doubles every week. I'd never just play singles. And yeah, to be honest, just results of doubles were we had an amazing summer last year. So we won like three 25Ks in a row, me and my partner, Julian. And that was a new partnership. And then we got a wild card. Again, fortunate in this country that in the summer, we host Challengers and, well, obviously 250s and 500s and Grand Slams. So we were kindly given the opportunity to play some Challenger doubles, which we'd obviously never done before. And then, won 2 out of 3 of those. So all of a sudden, my doubles ranking was probably fairly similar to my singles ranking, slowly kind of trending. And then all of a sudden there was that big gap between my doubles ranking and my singles ranking. So I was then in a position where I would get into Challenger doubles and I would probably just about squeeze into Challenger singles qualifying. So I thought, brilliant. We finished the swing of tournaments here, and we went over to the States to play. They just have a bunch of challengers kind of post Wimbledon, pause during the US Open, and then pretty much for the rest of the year. So we thought, we'd both gone to college, we both like it in the States, we'll just go and, try our hand at some of the challenges. And the first few weeks of that, I think maybe we won one doubles match over there. At which point you're thinking, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. But then we started to do really well. So then we started to win a lot of tournaments, Challenger tournaments in doubles. And the Challenger setup is, you play in a different place every week. So yes, it's in the States, but the States is a bloody big place. So you're probably flying, at least 2 hours to different events, at least. The doubles final is on a Saturday, and then singles qualifying starts on Sunday in a different place. So, you'd have probably an afternoon match for the doubles. And if you're playing singles qualifying, then you're flying that evening and then playing singles the next day. And so it just became, the decision was pretty much made for me by that. It's impossible to not have a rest day for, a month. It's just stupid. So that decision was made for me, really. Now, obviously, I could have kind of taken a step back and said, actually, I don't want to play Challenger doubles. I want to play, I want to continue to play futures, and hopefully, then maybe, I do well in challengers, and start getting into the main draw of challengers. That's obviously an option, but that didn't really appeal to me. I was perfectly comfortable with doubles. I enjoy it. I knew that my game was well suited to it, and I'd been given some advice over the summer by a guy called Purav Raja, who's this kind of guru, an Indian doubles guru, I would call him, who said, tennis is really about playing the big tournaments and making as much money as you can possibly make. And I thought, and the quickest path for me to do that was definitely through doubles. So that's kind of how the transition went for me. It wasn't really it was easy for me because I wanted to play the bigger tournaments and make more money, and I knew that I enjoyed doubles just as much, if not more, than singles. So for me, it was an easy decision to make.
Yeah. So you entered that new level, the challengers and going into the Grand Slams. You're playing well. Last year you had a really tremendous year. What was the record? Like how many challenges in a row?
I think it was 10, maybe 10 or 11. And it wasn't in a row, but it was like in one season. Yeah.
Yeah, in one season. It was sort of a record, right? They came out with it, and LTA was talking. It was amazing. Well, now how this changed, or if changed any of your psychology? Maybe expectations are coming up. Maybe pressure from the outside. Media. People will start talking about you. So, what is the psychology there?
Well, yeah, I'd say what you mean now. So now it's very different.
When you break that step, when you broke that level and you're reaching challengers towards Grand Slams, let's say, and after this strike,
it's different. I have a much bigger team around me now, which helps massively in terms of like my conditioning, my psychology, my nutrition, my coach. So I have a much bigger team around me, which I think does both really. It kind of takes a bit of pressure off because I can, I don't have to worry about what I'm lifting today because, Ollie, my S&C will have written it out, and I don't have to worry about, what I need to work on my backhand because Calvin, my coach, will tell me. And so, that takes a bit of pressure off, like my daily kind of decision-making responsibilities. But at the same time, like I have a team around me that, I want to do well. They're putting a lot of effort and time into me developing, and I want to do well, not only for me, but also for them. Even though they would say, that's, don't worry about us, but I do, I do want to do well for them. In terms of the tournaments, I would say there hasn't been much change. I mean, I played Wimbledon for the first time last year. We got a wild card in, but at that point, our rankings were pretty good. And I was unbelievably nervous. But I'd say the same about the first futures tournament I played. Unbelievably nervous. I'd say the same about the first few challenger tournaments I played. I was unbelievably nervous. And then you play. The next time you go out there, you're a lot less nervous. And then obviously if you're playing however many challenges we played, by the a millionth challenger, you're feeling pretty comfortable out there. By challenge number 10, we were going out there and it was like it was just it was completely normal. And I would say the same for the Australian Open and the French Open. This year we went out there and we felt pretty. Well, I personally felt pretty comfortable out there because I've been there. Now, if I'd have gotten to the quarterfinals of a Grand Slam, then I'm sure then I would feel that nervousness and that pressure again. But I think it's again, it's that word, the adaptability. You just tennis forces you to adapt and learn. And I think once you've been there a couple of times, it makes it a whole lot easier. You just get into this headspace and this routine that you have, and then the pressure kind of goes away because you're just not worried about it.
Hmm. So the more time and experience you get, the more you're getting used to it as far as handling pressure. And with this adaptability that you have, this mechanism helps you to go through next time more loose, let's say. Or
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, in the cases where you did have nerves, let's say, what was your um, perspective there? How did you handle that? And what was a moment where you felt really stressed, and you had the big nerves, and it was important? Maybe do you bring an instance in your mind, an
100%,
example?
100% Wimbledon last year.
Mm.
I always serve first in the partnership, and we won the toss, I think. So I think we were serving, and yeah, I didn't actually get broken in that first game, but I remember like my legs were felt like jelly. It was just like nothing really that I'd felt before. And I suppose in like college tennis, you get tight. And in professional tennis, lower down, you get tight. But, I had my family there. I had a pretty big crowd. Compared to what I'd usually play in front of. Maybe I played in a few bigger ones, but pretty big crowd. It's Wimbledon. It's like the biggest tournament ever. I've spent hours and hours there watching people, and and I was just really nervous, and I wanted more than anything to make it go away. And I don't, I wouldn't say I really fully settled till like probably a set into the match.
Mm.
And I think I look back and I think, well, could I have prepared better, or could I have found a way to, perform better under those situations? And I think you have to give yourself a little bit of a chance and say, it's not that surprising that you were nervous, mate. And, you played pretty well considering your legs felt like jelly. But when you're in those situations, I think certainly you have to, like I said, I didn't get broken and actually played pretty well. And I think that's a product of just years of, self-taught, years of routines. And, you have to believe in yourself even when you're nervous. And that never went away from me. It wasn't like, oh my God, I can't do this. It wasn't that kind of nervousness. It was like, man, I hope I play well. I hope I play well. And so you kind of fall back. You have to fall back into your routines, which just becomes a little bit more difficult in those situations. I think when you're tight and when you're nervous, it's difficult to stay focused and fall back and kind of just let the body take over. I've played so many tennis matches in my time, but it becomes a little bit more difficult to do that when you're in that state of too much arousal.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the flow state, right? Being in the zone.
That's what I look for. Yeah, I love the flow state, but it's a slippery one. It's difficult.
What helps you find it? What is something that helps you find it?
I think certainly preparation. There's like this kind of unglamorous side of, I do the same thing before pretty much every match, and that is a physical thing as much as it is a mental thing. I think certainly kind of experience in those moments. trying to, I mean, for me personally, my optimal state is when I'm relaxed. So for me, it's just about, that experience in those moments has helped me massively to relax and find that. I mean, I think about our run of challenges, and by the end of it, it was just kind of automatic. I mean, we arguably were in the flow state for like 8 weeks. Sure, some of the tournaments or matches we weren't playing great and we won, but we it just became a routine and became habit. But yeah, and sometimes like and I don't know how you feel about this as a psychologist, but sometimes it doesn't, you can't find the flow state, and understanding that that's okay, and you have to, sometimes you're not going to play great, and you're not going to be in a mentally good place, and that's also okay. And then I think that allows you to find the flow state more often, as if you're not, it's like a bar of soap, the harder you try and grab it, the faster it slips out of your hand. So yeah, I think all those things. But yeah, I'd say for me, those routines and practices, help me the most to find it.
Yeah, yeah, it's very nice, beautiful how you put it. That you cannot always, you say, be there chasing on being on the flow state,
Yeah,
because it changes daily, second by second, minute by minute. But you say it's okay to accept of not being there, and going with what you have at this very moment.
yeah,
um because after you have felt the flow state, it's like, it's like a medicine. You want to be there.
yeah, yeah,
You want to be there, but the more you push to be there, the more it resists.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but it's years of training, as you're saying, and years of applying the routines, um having the vision, visualizing, how you want to play. You mentioned self-talk earlier, how you talk to yourself, and all of these mental skills that once they're applied, I think, consistently, before matches, or all of the routines, and including also the diet. It's a combination of things.
100%. I think you just, that combination, you have to, I feel like I want to put myself in the best position possible for, the flow state to happen, for me to play well to happen. But, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah,
Yeah. And, and yeah, put myself in the best position, and not, desperately chase it, and desperately, I'm not on court thinking, I did my routines. Why aren't I playing well? Why am I thinking about, this and this and this? What's going on? Because you're human, and you can't, you're not going to be perfect every time you play tennis. That's just a fact. I don't care who you are. But yeah, I think for me, the mindset I take to, that ideal flow state is just trying to do everything to let it happen, and put yourself in the best possible position for it to happen. Yeah.
yeah. So we're talking about flow state, we're talking about arousal, not being too hyped or not be underhyped,
Yeah.
self-talk, visualizing, routines. We're talking about the mental game. So many athletes, they do work on that, in the professional level, but also I'm talking in the juniors level. What do you think is your opinion? But I think and I'm asking this question because I think there's a lot of room of sports psychology to be incorporated. What is your opinion on, and it's more a general question, how can it be incorporated more smoothly, and how would it be more available and more into the teams of juniors and also professionals? Or do you think is important, and how would that happen in your opinion?
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously, massively important. I think anyone that kind of disagrees that the psychological side, is important and is something that can be worked on is, completely off the mark. How can it be integrated? It's a good question. I think, the way I've done it is I almost have done that side of it the hard way, because I've had to, kind of learn how to do it by myself. And that's just, I wasn't in my junior training, it was never something that was really discussed other than your coach telling you to focus or, whatever it was. But that's not really what we're looking at here. We're kind of looking at a deeper level of understanding. During college, I would say probably neglected a bit compared to, the physical side and the winning, the tennis side. I would personally say, in my experience, I think there's massive room for that. I think the only real help that we were offered was like the university counselor, who's, it wasn't a sports psychology thing at all. And then professionally, yeah, I mean, like in my personal position, so I kind of went in without any real experience. I mean, I know I talked to you a few times over a period, kind of like trying to figure it out. And yeah, I certainly didn't have money to afford it. I wasn't really good enough. They have psychologists here, but I wasn't really good enough to be able to access that. So I kind of had to learn, what I had to learn how to play how to play well, psychologically how to play well. And frankly, that was through trial and error. I mean, if I was, I'm more inclined to be more negative on court, which is fine. I mean, that's fine. Lots of people do that, but then when like the self-talk is always negative, and it's that's what I had to teach myself. And I know that I spoke to you a lot about the self-talk stuff. Is yeah, you can't be negative and down on yourself the whole time. No one can. Now, yeah. So back to your question. That's how I've done it. Back to your question. Yes, there's definitely room for it, and there's definitely performance to be gained from it. 100%. Integrating it, I think it's 100% should be a requirement for national governing bodies of tennis to, have psychologists and educate coaches on psychology properly, rather than them, telling you to just focus or, work harder or whatever it is. So certainly from a coach education standpoint, there should be, sports psychology for kids. I think 100%. Performance and just mental well-being on court. I think in college they will college sports are all about results, and they will do anything for results. And I think it's probably pretty easy to prove that, a sports psychologist will be able to produce better results, not least in tennis. And then when you get to the professional stuff, it gets a little bit more difficult, because then I'd say the majority of players playing on the Futures Tour probably can't even afford a coach. But yeah, there has to be a way. Like, there has to be a way, for players to like. I wish I'd have like shared a psychologist. I mean, it sounds like a weird thing, but if a group of players like said, we're gonna pay this guy and we're gonna individually talk to him each once a month. So 4 times a month in total, or whatever it is. I think, yeah, I kind of wish I could have done that, because it almost feels like a shortcut, and there is definitely performance to be gained from that, as well as just a sense of well-being, outside of the tennis. But I know that's what I got from talking to you was, yeah, if you definitely some skills to use on court, but also off court, a bit of support and help, so you're not having to figure everything out by yourself. So yeah, I'm sure we'll see an increase of it. There's definitely not enough of it at the moment. All the top guys are using it. So yeah, it will increase and be integrated, and I think I don't see why it's difficult to do that really.
Hmm.
I mean, you might, I don't know,
Yeah.
you think like, I don't know how, what obstacles. I guess the one thing, the mental health and mental side of things, I think is still quite difficult to talk about for people because so many people are affected by it, and it's usually kind of thought of in a negative way. So I don't know if that's, I don't know. I don't know why it's not already, but I'm sure it will be.
Yeah. There's more people opening up, and we see also tennis players, but even, from other sports, gymnastics, swimming, they start to speak up, and it's really important, for all the athletes at this level and even beyond that level, also for juniors
Yeah.
and everybody to see and openly talk about it. So it's a nice conversation, and as I'm thinking of a last question. Um,
Right.
yeah, no, it's gonna be a simple one, and I think it's important because you talked about something that you talked about also juniors, and when is the right age to start, the psychological aspect, the sports psychology aspect, because a sports psychologist can help you inside the court with all the routines and everything, but also allow you to expand as an individual, right, with life skills, um, all the things that they will be coming to you, that you have to deal with, either following a professional route or the college route. So, what would you be your advice as far as this mental perspective towards young athletes?
Mm.
What is an important aspect that they can more closely look at when they're growing up and playing their tennis? Is there a specific technique, a specific um, way of looking at things, or what would be your advice?
Well, I think first thing, and every professional tennis player ever says this. It's a massive cliche, but definitely make sure that you enjoy your tennis. And
Yeah.
look, when I was a junior, I'd throw my racket, and my parents would be getting mad, cross at me. But throughout my life, I've enjoyed my tennis. It's like a space for me, and I think when you're a junior, when you're 27, like me, when if you're 35, if you're enjoying the tennis and the process, um, and in that kind of headspace, then it becomes a lot easier. Everything becomes a lot easier. Um, and I also think there's a lot of pressure in junior tennis, and I look at that now and laugh. I laugh because again, I was there. Resty, I'm sure you were there. I was watching I think it was like an under 12s tournament here the other week, and the parents are kind of clapping, and there are tears everywhere, and everyone's fighting, and it's like at that age, even when you're 16, 17, 18, there's still so much to learn, and you're so young. You're so young. So yeah, try not to be too concerned with the results. Definitely don't be concerned with the results. And I think then on the mental side, like I say, if you're enjoying your tennis and you're not too focused on the results, and you're just trying to improve yourself, whether it's your tennis or you're making friends or whatever it is, they're all important things. But really, whether you win or lose, although it feels like the whole world, actually isn't that important, and that's still something that I think about my tennis today. I'm much more concerned with how I was mentally, how my energy was on court, and how well I played, and how well if I'm working on my backhand, how was that today, whether I win or lose, and those things I think are much more important and will allow you to have longevity and to enjoy your tennis a lot more. So yeah, those are the things that I would say, and I think those things can all be facilitated by, working on your mental skills on court. So yeah, that's what I say. But
Yeah,
yeah,
enjoyment, the
enjoyment.
process.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like my dad always said, it's only a game. It's only a game. If you're not enjoying it, then what's the point? Go play a different game. You know.
That did help you though, right? I think.
Really? Yeah.
Huh?
It's only a game. Yeah.
It's just a game.
Yeah.
And that's a nice conclusion, because obviously we haven't had that talk, and in that richness and depth.
Yeah.
So it's nice, and
Yeah.
it's nice to be here, because it's just a game and reminds me of you, um, in college tennis, with your body posture and your mindset and everything, just carrying on. That is just a game.
Yeah.
And it's nice. It's nice to be concluding with that.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining today.
Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure. It was
It's been
nice.
nice. It's been really nice to speak to an old friend.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Good. So thanks everybody for watching. Um, until next time, we'll see. We'll bring together for a nice conversation. Someone else. So thanks again for watching, and see you soon. Thank you, Henry.
Thanks.